I'm Nurit Rappaport, and this is my daughter Batya. I made Aliyah from Australia, and we made Aliyah from Poland, where we were in Shlichut for a few years. Batya is actually born in Poland. Each of the kids is born in a different place. And it's so exciting to see all of these wonderful people. So Chanukah Sameach.
Thank you, Nurit and Batya. Mark Schneider, go ahead, please.
Yes, hi everyone. Chanukah Sameach. My wife and I made Aliyah just about 1.5 years ago from Sydney, Australia, and we're living here in Ma'ale Adumim and enjoying it very much. And we have 4 kids, and as of last Friday, just a couple of days ago, 5 grandchildren. One of our daughters gave birth to a baby boy on Friday, first day Chanukah here in Israel. So we're very excited with that.
Okay, so I'm guessing that that there's a good chance that the baby's name may be Meltitiyahu.
That's a possibility. Look, the parents aren't letting any secrets out till, please God, the bris will be hopefully on Friday, on the 8th day, of course, of Chanukah.
Wonderful.
But,
Mazal tov.
we'll see what happens.
Mazal tov. Mazal tov. Moshe Liwek, you're on mute, Moshe.
Hi, I'm Moshe Liwek. My wife and I, Yardena, we just made Aliyah to Israel from Frederick, Maryland, and we love being here, and we look forward to meeting everyone when we come out of Bidud.
Okay.
And I want to wish everybody a Chag Sameach.
Okay, Chag Sameach. Okay, Tsuriel.
Hi, I'm Tsuriel. I'm from Yerushalayim originally. And my wife is not here. She's trying to put my son to sleep. So this time I will be just myself. And she's from Maryland. And Chanukah Sameach.
Okay, Chanukah Sameach. Okay, Devi and Jerry.
Hi, Chag Sameach, and happy Hanukkah to everyone. I think I read that they found an old menorah, 2,000 years old. I think I've read that in Israel. You find all kinds of things there. But anyway, we're here, and we're happy to meet everybody and see everybody. And it's really amazing that we can do this. So we're happy to be here.
Faye and Brian.
Hello, this is Brian, and this is my wife Faye, and Chag Sameach. We live here in St. Louis and have been together for quite some time and have 1 son.
Okay, Rabbi Friedman.
Hi, Ezra Friedman. I have 4 children, and I'm very blessed to be the rabbi of an amazing community called Musar Avicha here in Ma'ale Adumim. Originally from Connecticut, New York, and last Canada, and I've been in Israel for about 16 years. I'm very happy.
Uriel.
Hi, I'm Uriel, and I live in Ma'ale Adumim.
Okay, and at the bottom of my screen is Mark Schneider. Go ahead, please, Mark. Oh no, there's 2.
So
there's 2.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not your twin. That's not your twin brother with the same name.
No, I have 2.
There's always 2 of them. They run the place.
Yeah. No, it just works out better for me if I have one on which I talk and one on which I see. So it's only one of me.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. And I'm Zev Mason, and I'm blessed to be the rabbi of New Sachri B'nai Zion. We've been blessed with 9 children. Two of our children who live in Israel. One in Moshav Yonatan in the Golan. The other in near Yokneam, and some children in America as well. So it's wonderful to be back for our second opportunity to be together with our friends from our synagogue here, as well as with Musar Avicha. The brief program that we at least had scheduled or planned involves a Devar Torah on Hanukkah. So Harav Friedman, I'm looking very, very much forward to hearing some thoughts that you'd like to share with us on Hanukkah.
Shakoach, Rabbi Mason. It's a big scoop. Shakoach for, of course, running the event as you so eloquently do. I'd like to mention a small idea I don't think you always pay attention to regarding Chanukah, and I think it's a special connection as we're connecting a community both in America and Israel, and we're very passionate about our homeland and our Jews around the world. So the Rambam, when he codifies the holiday of Chanukah, he mentions a very interesting point. He talks about the return. He talks about the oppression we received, we felt by the Greeks, and then the triumph of the war, and then the Rambam finishes v'chazra malchut Yisrael yeter al 200 shana, and the kingship, the autonomy of Jews came back for over 200 years, and that's a very interesting point. What does the Rambam want to mention? That point of until the second destruction, we had autonomy, we governed ourselves for 200 years. So it's very important because when we talk about the connection to our land of Israel, one of the most important points that should be focused on is not just that we have religious freedoms and that we have our land, which is holy and precious to us, but the fact that we can govern ourselves. Autonomy on a Jewish body is very, very important. In fact, so much so that there's a halacha, there's a law that when we see a city of Judea or the Kotel or the Beit HaMikdash, when it is in destruction, there's a commandment to rip our clothing. It's a sign of mourning. And the discussion of halakhic authorities, what does it mean that it's in destruction, it's destroyed or not? So it's interesting to see that certain halakhic authorities discuss that even if Jews live in Jerusalem and it's full and packed like it was 100, 150 years ago, but there's no governing Jewish body, it's still considered destroyed. We still have to rip our clothing, because if we don't have enough of our governing body, if we can't govern ourselves, governing our Jewish people together is a Kiddush Hashem. It's a beautiful thing, and that shows the idea of governing ourselves. And what does this have to do with Chanukah? Because as I mentioned earlier, the Rambam had said that after the triumph over the Greeks, we, Baruch Hashem, thank God, returned to running. We had a malchut, we had a kingship, a monarchy, a Jewish government for over 200 years. And it's interesting to mention that I don't think it's easy, but if you look at the later 50 or 60 or 70 years of the Hashmonean kingship, things weren't so easy. There were Kohanim, there were chief priests that were chosen, let's just say, under the table, wasn't done very well. The end towards the beginning of the second destruction wasn't so easy. But the Rambam insists that Chazra HaMalchut Yeter al 200 shana, that we should have, thanks to a Kadosh Baruch Hu, we sing, we say hallel with a bracha, we praise Hashem, not only the fact that we triumphed over war and we succeeded, but we were able to reboot and reignite and reinaugurate our beautiful autonomy in government and our power of Am Yisrael together. And that can be obviously seen by the Al Nisim. If you look at the Al Nisim, the one on Purim is very short, and one on Chanukah goes on very long and mentions that afterwards, you Shem Gadol v'Kadosh B'Olamecha. And I say this in a time where it seems at least what I see in the news that in America the elections are over. It's lock, stock, and barrel. There's nothing left, from what I understand. But where we're living, it's any day now we could have another election, maybe another election, and it's a very complicated mess. But at the same time, we have to appreciate and value that, thank God, Baruch Hashem, we have a government of Jews that we wish we could be better. We want to improve and connected to Torah and more connected to the values. But at the end of the day, it's a value in and of itself. And that's why we're thanking for Chanukah as well. Even though things aren't perfect, to be able to have an autonomy in our land is a huge Kiddush Hashem. Shakoach, Rabbi Mason, and love to hear from beautiful Dvar Torah from you.
Okay, thank you, Rabbi Friedman, for those very, very inspiring words. One of the things that I know that we benefit from, we in St. Louis, is that just seeing you and hearing your Divrei Torah, it's a taste of Eretz Yisrael. It's like coming directly into our homes, and it's so wonderful. It's so wonderful. So I hope that it's mutually beneficial, this connection, because we certainly benefit from the connection, and I with what you just said, I feel like I'm in Israel. I had a little bit of a time of Israel, although I still will have latkes, not sufganiyot, only latkes here. That's the minhag. In terms of a thought that I'd like to share with everyone, begin by sharing with you a story. They tell the story about a husband and a wife that were getting ready to go to sleep. So the wife is ready to close her eyes, but the husband is standing and staring at himself in the full-length mirror. "What's the matter with you?" she says. "Come to sleep already." So he turns to her and he says, "Look at this." He says, I'm so depressed. All I see is a receding hairline. My hair is going back, a growing gut, getting bigger around the middle. He said, wrinkles under my eyes, and what hair I have left is gray. He says to his wife, "Tell me something positive, something uplifting so I could go to sleep." His wife thinks for a moment and she says, "Well, the good news is your vision is 20/20. This year, 2020, we have very good vision. And perhaps it's not coincidental that there's a very strong association between Hanukkah and the sense of sight. As we sing each night on Hanukkah, Hanerot Halalu, we say that the candles are kadosh, the neros, the candles are holy, and we don't have permission to benefit from their light. As I think most of you know, that one is not allowed to read by the lights of the Chanukiot. You have to have a special candle that if you use the light, that way you're using the light of the Shamas rather than the lights of the Chanukiot themselves. But the purpose of the Hanukkah candles is simply to be looked at. Moreover, there's another unique halacha, unique law in Hanukkah, that a person who can't light for himself or herself and sees the candles of someone else, nevertheless, they can still make the bracha, the second blessing of Sha'asa Nisim Lavotenu, the one who made miracles for our fathers. So it's a curious halacha. It's a curious halacha. When I see someone put on tefillin, for example, or someone blow shake a lulav, or someone blows a shofar, I don't make a blessing. Only on Hanukkah can I say a bracha when seeing someone else do the mitzvah. And why is that? So Rabbi Levi of Berdichev says that Hanukkah is the holiday of seeing. And in a sense, the different holidays correspond to different senses. On Purim, it's the holiday of listening, where our hearing is heightened as we listen to the Megillah. On Pesach, our sense of taste is sharpened when we eat matzah and moror. On Hanukkah, Rav Levi says, we evaluate our sense of sight, of testing how well we see. But the question is, what is it that we're seeing? If it's not our physical sense of sight, in some sort of paradoxical sense, that's actually a liability, because we say seeing is believing. That's an expression that we've all heard said. So I think that if I can see it and perceive it, that it's true. But our rabbis describe the Greek Empire and the holiday of the celebration of the big miracles and the small miracles, that the influence of the Avanim was that of darkness, of choshech. And it's at this time that a little bit of light can dispel a tremendous amount of darkness. So being able to focus on the darkness leaves a person depressed and sad. Being able to focus on the light, to being able to focus on the good things, inspirits us and ennobles us and gives us the koch to be able to go on. Baruch Hashem, there's good news on the horizon. Hashem willing, we're more than halfway through all of this, but there's been marvelous brachas that we've received, I think, along the way. Resilience, and especially new friendships that have been made, and the realization that truly what's important, together, of course, with Hashem, is people, our friends, our old friends, and the new friends that we've made. So perhaps that's a thought for Hanukkah as we perhaps segue now into the transition of the topic that we're here to discuss. There's a lot of heroes who are out there today, but together with Tsuriel and Devi, Tsuriel, the coordinator of the program on Musar Avicha's end, and Devi, the coordinator on our end, we came up with the suggestion to talk about heroes. So each person or each family, could be one answer, could be two answers within a box, to talk about his or her hero. In other words, who do you think of when you hear the term heroism? And this could be a person from Jewish history or from family history, and telling about perhaps one deed or one thing that makes that person, in your eyes, a hero. So maybe beginning in opposite order, going around. Mark, would you like to get the ball rolling and begin? Mark Schneider.
Yeah, certainly. So I'm going to go a little left field on my choice of a hero. And I'm because I think it has a really interesting message, a message that I'm conscious of in my own personal life. And the hero that I want to talk about is Nachshon ben Aminadav, who was the prince of the tribe of Judah at the time of the crossing of the Red Sea. And he has a connection with Chanukah because, in fact, as we pass on through Chanukah each day, we read of the presentations that each tribe made through their leader at the original dedication of the Mishkan, of the tabernacle in the desert. And because Judah has pride of place, Nachshon ben Aminadav is mentioned in our Torah reading on the first day of Chanukah. And the sense in which I relate to him as a hero is that famously, when the Egyptians are approaching and the Jews are stuck with the sea behind them and the Egyptians approaching, and it seems as though the Exodus is going to grind to a very quick halt after less than a week. God says to Moses, of course, take out your rod and strike the water and the waters will part. And Moses takes out his rod and he hits the water and actually nothing happens. And it takes Nachshon ben Aminadav, Nachshon, to say, well, hold on, God said the waters will part. And he jumps into the water, risking his own life. And of course, the Midrash tells us that as soon as his feet hit the waters part. And then the great miracle of the crossing of the Red Sea takes place and all the people can cross in safety. And I think the message of Nachshon is that any of us can be a hero, but we have to have a degree of trust and faith, and we have to take action. We have to take initiative ourselves in our own lives. And I think when we do that, when any of us do that, whether it is something big like making Aliyah and coming to live in Israel, or even starting a new business, or perhaps having a child or getting married, each of those are big steps that we take that require us to have faith and belief, and to believe that things will work out. And when we do those things, I think each of us is a hero. And I think that's the message of Nachshon ben Aminadav. And I think it's no coincidence that he is associated with the first day of Chanukah, because there's a famous question that's asked by many of the sages, is if the cruse of oil that was found had enough oil for one day and it lasted 8, and that's why we light candles for 8 days, why in fact is the first day special? Because there was enough oil for day 1 in any event. It's a great question, and there are many, many answers. But the answer that I think suits Nachshon ben Aminadav is that the miracle on the first day of Chanukah was that, having found a cruse of oil with just enough oil for one day, rather than the leaders of the time saying, oh, you can imagine the debate. Some would be saying, yes, let's go ahead and light. And others would be saying, no, there's no point. Let's wait until we have enough oil. We shouldn't go ahead and rededicate without enough oil. That would have been the debate. And of course, it was those who took the initiative, who wanted to take the initiative, who won the debate and created Jewish history by creating the opportunity for the miracle. And that is the kind of courage that I think all of us need, and we can learn that from Nachshon ben Aminadav. And on the first day of Chanukah, it's his day, and that is perhaps it's that attitude that makes the first day of Chanukah a day of miracles, without which, in fact, we wouldn't have the rest of Chanukah. So Chanukah Sameach. That's my take on heroism.
Wonderful, wonderful. Debbie and Jerry, would you like to share some thoughts? Your heroes.
Well, I kind of took a different take on it. I'm a docent, and we have a Holocaust museum here in St. Louis. We're building a bigger one at this present time. And been there for about 18 years. So of course we all know what Yad Vashem does and honors all the righteous Christians who saved Jews, and they did it they were ordinary people who did extraordinary things, like Irene Sendler and Raoul Wallenberg, and we can go on and on. But I also want to acknowledge the Holocaust survivors. I think they're heroes, because I think from what they've gone through, they could sit home in depression and feel bad. And I've seen a lot of them speak and want to make the world a better place and send their message. There's one Holocaust survivor I'd like to speak about. I think Rabbi Smason knows her, Rachel Miller. So Rachel Miller, telling her story briefly, but of course it has a lot more suffering than what I can tell you in a few minutes. But she lost all her family members, and she was really affected when her sister went back she was going to get a purse and go shopping, and she ended up being shipped off to Auschwitz. So she basically was an orphan. She even ended up in a convent for a while. And she lost all her family. And, the matter of fact, this month of December is very hard for her, because that's when her husband died and a lot of members of her family died. But anyway, she went to New York. She came to the United States. She lived in California. She came to St. Louis. So what did she do with these tragedies that happened to her? She decided to speak in front of thousands of people over the years. And she really had an impact. I saw it for my own self. I mean, she had an impact. We chose her. There was a school that in Missouri that had a lot of anti-Semitism, and they saw some kids wanting to hate Jews, and they chose Rachel Miller to speak to them. And it actually she makes a difference, is what I'm saying. So in my mind, she's a heroine. I guess that's how you say it if it's a woman. So she also, her son died from AIDS. She had breast cancer, and she continues to contribute to the community on an unbelievable level. And at the same time, she started an organization called Shaving Israel. So what is that organization? She found out that some of the Israeli soldiers didn't have necessity items they needed. They didn't have homes, or they were lone soldiers. So she started an organization where we're able to raise funds for, warmer coats. And it started out with, even shoelaces and toothbrushes, basic items. Now, to me, to take the tragedies that she's gone through and to say, I'm going to go out in the community. And of course, she speaks because she wants the world to be, for people to understand the lessons of the Holocaust, and hopefully they learn to have acceptance and not be anti-Semitic and all the other things that go along with it. But for me, she's a hero. And so are many of the other Holocaust survivors that I could have talked about. So I think we should look at the survivors that speak, well, all survivors in general, but of course the ones that speak and give that much back to the community, to me, can be called a hero. And I spent so much time at the museum, I just felt that was what I wanted to talk about. So I'm pretty much done.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Debbie. Thank you very much. Nurit and Batya, if you'd like to go ahead, please.
Okay.
We can't hear you.
Nurit, you've muted yourself.
Did you unmute us, Batya?
You're good now.
We're unmuted. Okay, excellent. Growing up, one of my major heroes was Yonatan Netanyahu, who happens to also be a family member, because he dedicated himself to a greater good. Now living in Israel, I have been privileged and blessed to meet more amazing people. And recently I've been very interested in Miriam Peretz, who wrote a book called The Song of Miriam. Miriam was an immigrant from Morocco. She moved to Israel with her family from a very poor, her family was very poor, and they used to get clothes from the rabbi because her mother cleaned the rabbi's house. And what I find inspiring in Miriam is exactly what you said about the Holocaust survivor, she took her experiences that were very challenging and she used them to build herself up. She used them to make and enhance her life to be so much more. When they moved to Israel, they didn't even know what electricity was or basic needs. And she'd never seen books because they could never afford them. And she was so appreciative of everything that she had and so appreciative to live in Israel. And unfortunately, she lost 2 sons in the war. She had 2 IDF soldiers. And so she was an educator. She was a principal of a school, and now she goes around Israel talking about our connection to the land and to the people and how we need to build our country because we're blessed to have a place to be. So I think Miriam is a hero because, as you say, she took her experiences and her challenges and the opportunities in her life to make a difference, and she really did. Did you want to say something? No? Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, Nurit. Brian and Dr. Faye, would you like to go ahead, please?
Yes. So when the question came up, I started thinking about what I felt a hero was, and Faye and I talked about this for a long time. We kind of went through a lot of different ideas, but I think it comes down to the heroes are those ordinary people who make extraordinary decisions. And the person that we personally are connected to represents a whole class of heroes in modern Judaism, who I think are reflective of the same class of heroes in the time of Hanukkah. And specifically, we came up with the name of Rabbi Shmuel Greenwald, who was the teacher that we met at Aish HaTorah when we first had our son and we were taking him someplace to get educated. And the reason, it wasn't that he was an educator, but rather Rabbi Greenwald came from a secular background and he moved to Israel essentially just to visit a friend, and started learning more and became active with Aish, and spent 8 years there and learned a lot. But the real heroic act was moving away from Israel and moving to St. Louis. If you can imagine having spent 8 years in Israel and having had a spiritual awakening, and having that spiritual awakening where you're supposed to be as a Jew, the sheer courage it takes to say, I'm going to leave and I'm going to go to the hinterlands of America. I'm not going to Los Angeles. I'm not going to New Jersey. I'm not going to a Jewish community. I'm going to move away from a place where I can easily buy kosher food, where being Jewish is easy. I'm going to move to some place where being Jewish is a little hard, in order to help other people awaken the way I was awoken. And so he became a pretty strong, big factor in our lives for a couple of years. And Faye had always gone to Musar Avicha, and eventually, I think, when we started going back to Musar Avicha, it was with a renewed vigor and much more appreciation. Frankly, I think Rabbi Smason falls in that same category as one of those people who came by. But I think there's a class of Jewish citizens who have gone forth to try and help educate other Jewish people who are in need of just some very basic education, and have, in doing so, chosen to leave the easy Jewish life. And I can't imagine that life in Israel is always easy, but I think it's easier to be Jewish in Israel than perhaps in St. Louis. And I think these are, this is a decision that, really is sort of reflective of the Hasmoneans when so to become to found a new dynasty or to found you know, a new holiday, but rather they took it up because they knew that they were going to move from being just another Jewish person who's getting along with the powers that be, and rather to rededicate other Jews, to serve as an inspiration to rededicate other Jews. And in doing so, they created a movement. And so that was how we ended up with Rabbi Greenwald, but we see him in a class of the whole community that ended up being educated by Noah Weinberg or other educators in Israel, and then have come out to try and rededicate the Jewish community that is currently living outside of St. Louis, or outside of Israel, in places like St. Louis. So that was our example of a hero and a heroic act.
Marvelous, Brian. Thank you. Thank you, and Dr. Fay as well. Moshe Lewick, you'd like to share with us your hero.
Yeah, thank you, Rabbi. I want to say there are three men in my life that are heroes. One was my father. He always stood for, you know, the right things, the right causes, the right thing. He went to synagogue with me. He played ball with me. He did all the things that a father should do. But he went out on a limb, and when there was something unjust in the neighborhood, he took matters in his own hands and went to the appropriate authorities and fought on behalf of everybody who lived in our neighborhood in the Bronx. Anyway, that's one hero. The other heroes are Rabbi Charner, Yitzhak Charner, who is the head of the Torah School of Greater Washington. He walked me down the aisle because my father wasn't alive at the time that I got married. But he stands for everything that's right. He's helped my wife immensely. He's helped other people in the community. And he also shapes the young minds of the Torah School. And the third hero in my life was Rabbi Baruch Lukowski. A wonderful rabbi. He came to Frederick 10 years ago. It was a small town, and we had a wonderful rabbi there already, Rabbi Morris Kosman. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but he was a wonderful rabbi, and he was the hero of the community because he, again, took everybody under his wing and was very kind and generous to them. But Rabbi Lukowski also stands for what's right. And I think that's a message of Hanukkah. It's not just a light, but we need to be a light unto other nations. But also, I think, that to fight for what's right and to do only good in your life. And those are my three heroes. Not as impressive as, some of the other folks, but I just wanted to share that with the group, if I may.
Beautiful. Uriel, would you like to share with us a hero? Uriel, are you able to hear me? Yeah, then please go ahead.
Oh, we can't hear you. I think you're on mute.
It looks to me as though Uriel is on the bus, actually, so I'm not sure that he is free to speak.
No, I can't hear anything.
You're on mute, Rabbi Smason.
Okay, so maybe by the time Uriel gets back to Malaya Dumi, maybe we'll have him off of mute. In the meantime, the Brownsteins, please go ahead.
That's me too. I can't hear.
David, you're on mute. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I knew if I poked my head above the water, I was going to pay for it. The hero that I want to speak about is someone who would probably be a well-known and respected figure were it not for his experience during the Shoah. And that's Viktor Frankl, who was a brilliant teenager, who presented a paper to Sigmund Freud that Freud had published in the professional journal when Frankl was only in his teens, who then became a follower of Adler and eventually formed the third school of Viennese psychotherapy, which was logotherapy, which was treatment by meaning. And he was in the process of writing what was to be his major work when the war broke out, and he and his family were all sent to Theresienstadt, where his father died, and then on to Auschwitz, where his mother and brother died. His wife was separated from him and died in Bergen-Belsen. He himself survived Theresienstadt and Auschwitz and several labor camps. He also lost his manuscript on the way. And he kept himself alive in the camps by giving himself the task of trying to reconstruct his manuscript from memory. Because he believed that the primary motivation of an individual is to search for meaning in life, to find a purpose in their life. And that if you find that purpose, you will then be strong enough to withstand almost anything that life can present you with. And he was a living testament to that belief. And he also, in the camps, was a source of encouragement to many others and saved their lives. Immediately after the war, when he was liberated, he spent 9 days dictating what became his most famous book, Man's Search for Meaning, and went on to lecture and treat by logotherapy. The reason why I choose him is both because of all of that and also because it seems to me that the message of his life is a message which is very relevant to Chanukah. This is lifted largely from the late Rabbi Sachs's observation on first night of Chanukah. Rabbi Sachs begins from exactly the same point as Mark brought up. Why do we celebrate the first night when that wasn't a miracle? And the answer that he gives from the many possible answers is the miracle was that the Chashmonaim looked for a cruse of oil that was pure. They didn't say, well, look, everything's been destroyed. There can't be anything here that we can use. They were hopeful, they felt they had a purpose, and they did everything they could to carry out that purpose. And that gave them the strength. And because of that, they found the cruse of oil. I just want to finish with a couple of other things that Viktor Frankl said. In some ways, suffering ceases to be suffering at the moment that it finds a meaning. For the world is in a bad state, but everything will become still worse unless each of us does his best. And perhaps what is his ultimate credo, and this seems to me to be something which is so resonant with Jews and so much representative of what we can give the world. Those who have a why to live can bear with almost any how.
Well, beautiful. Thank you very much, David. Edmundo, go ahead, Mrs. Brownstein.
Heroes in this house.
That's fine. Mrs. Brownstein, go ahead, please.
Thank you. Okay, so when Cyril first wrote and told us the topic for tonight's get-together, I actually froze. Do I go for a superhero like Wonder Woman or Batman? A biblical hero like Moshe or Devorah? Maybe a Zionist hero like Ben-Gurion or Begin? The choices are really endless, and in fact, one would think it should take some thought and consideration to choose such a person, but not for me. As soon as I read the word hero, only one name came to my mind: Betty Joseph of blessed memory, my mum, a true Eshet Chayil. What makes a hero? Well, Mum certainly didn't leap off any tall buildings, nor did she discover any cures for diseases. No, my mum was simply the kindest, most selfless and understanding person imaginable. She was truly filled with goodness and inner strength. She was loved by all, old and young, and she was certainly the only person on both sides of our family who went through life never arguing with anyone. She simply didn't know how. Her wonderful nature only allowed her to help and support everyone in any way that she could. But to us, she was our most wonderful mum and a perfect role model. It was only after her death, when we were sitting, talking and remembering, that I had a sudden realization. We knew her as the perfect mother, but her parents knew her as the perfect daughter, her brothers the perfect sister, our dad certainly knew her as the perfect wife, and her grandchildren and great-grandchildren knew her as the perfect grandma. The only person who didn't recognize her true goodness and total selflessness was my mum, and to me, that's a true hero.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you very much. Edmundo, would you like to share your hero?
Well, that's hard. That's hard. Coming out for a 25-year stint in the military, and not only in the military but in the medical field. You know, in the medical field for the Navy, the most condecorated medal honor winners are the Navy corpsmen, which is what I did. But I served with many people. But those are people that are called voluntarily to go and fight for the entire United States. But during this time, I'm reflecting back, and you know, that's our job to go out and do that. But you look at what I consider heroes right now are the medical professionals dealing with this pandemic in every single country in the world, and we have lost many of them. And it's very hard to look at medical professionals and look at them as heroes, because they usually come into medicine to help their fellow man and not to put themselves in harm's way. And that's what we're seeing now. As they're treating people day in and day out, they are putting themselves in harm's way, dealing with this catastrophe is going not only in this country, but around the world. And we have lost many of them. And many of them are unsung heroes. Many of them just did what they were supposed to do. Many of them were isolated themselves from their families, so their families will not get this horrific virus. You know, and many of them that be isolated for many months, and many of them pass away helping men till the very end. So, you know, it is a beacon of light right now. Look at a group of people that, regardless of who's in front of them, they put themselves and do their best in front of the situation that's placed upon them. And like someone already mentioned, you know, heroes are not the ones that learn terms like leadership and learn how to fight, how to low crawl and things like that. Are those people that make the decision at the moment's notice in that situation to be able to help someone that is in need. So those are my heroes right now. So
wonderful. Thank you, Edmundo. Tsuriel, please. You're on mute.
Tsuriel.
There you go.
So my heroes are my grandparents. My grandparents founded a kibbutz in the Jordan Valley. It's called Tirat Zvi. Maybe you know it from the meat. There is a famous factory meat, Tirat Zvi. In Tirat Zvi, it was extremely hard. It's an extremely hard place to live. Not today. Today you have air conditioner, but back in the days, they didn't have anything. Even they didn't have a fan. And when my father was a baby, they checked for there was 51 day, like the highest temperature was 53 degrees in Celsius. I don't know exactly how much is it in Fahrenheit, but it's quite a lot. It's very. I know that 37 it's 100, so you can imagine how much is it.
53 is 127, Tsuriel.
Okay, So they did it without any, not just air conditioner, they did it without any fan. So they found this kibbutz. And one story that I heard about my grandfather, they had a problem with, they didn't have a lot of water in the kibbutz. It was a very hot place. When they walked in the field one day, the irrigation, 1 minute, I will look for the word to make sure. I think irrigation canal. The irrigation canal collapsed. So my grandfather was with a friend. And so the friend said, okay, lie down on the ground. And he did it. My grandfather lied down on the ground. And during this time, the other guy fixed the canal to save the water the agriculture, the plants will get the water. And that was this kind of life. It's something that it's really hard for me to imagine in the modern life. But those people establish the country. And so for me, they are my heroes. I just will share their picture to let you 1 minute. I'll try. I'm not sure that I do it right. 1 minute. 1 minute. I will maybe now. Here, I will share their pictures. Do you see their pictures? The picture?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Great. And another picture I will share as well. A very typical, I would say, very typical for a farmer. This is my grandfather. Okay. So yeah, that's all. Yeah.
Marvelous. Thank you. Thank you. Well, I would call on Rabbi Friedman next, but he said that he's a little bit busy with a little one. So perhaps I'll just share a thought. I think I've given everyone a chance to be able to share. I know that Uriel is on the bus. So Uriel, if you're able to speak and chime in, so please let me know. But in the meantime, I just want to share. First of all, I'm so impressed by the thoughtful answers that everyone gave. Be the individuals who you identified, members of your family or others. When I think of heroes, there's many ideas that come to mind, but one group of heroes that I'll share with an acronym that some of my friends here in St. Louis may not be aware of, that's known as ZACA. ZACA is a Hebrew, is an acronym, a Hebrew acronym for Zihui Korbanot Ason. It's an organization of individuals in Israel, volunteer community response teams who operate in various districts. And these are organized by the government in Israel. And the full name essentially is an acronym, means identification, extraction, and rescue, an act of chesed shalemis. So most of the members of ZACA who are observant Jews themselves, they assist ambulance crews, and they're involved in the identification of victims of terrorism, of road accidents, and other disasters, where just not hopefully being overly graphic, where body parts and blood is spilled, and they collect these parts of a human body for proper burial. And they also provide first aid and rescue services. Baruch Hashem, I haven't heard them in the news often, at least not lately. But they also perform these acts of chesed for non-Jews as well, if they happen to be there. Lo Aleinu, it shouldn't happen again. When there was a spate of suicide bombings, they were prominent in the news. And chesed shalemet, as I think most of us know, is a term for true kindness and the dedication and the mesirut nefesh that these individuals do and have done, and that they're on call among the many medical professionals, especially at this time, as Edmundo shared. I just get chills every time I think about what it is that they do and how they sacrifice themselves in such a brave way for Am Yisrael and for our people in Israel. Rabbi Friedman, welcome back with us. And I'm interested in hearing, as I think everyone is for sure, your hero. And I think you'll be the last one who may share something. I'm not sure if it's going to work out that there'll be a Hadlakot Neirot by someone, if that'll work out as well, to be able to, at least on the Israel end, to be able to, so that we could light candles together.
Thank you. First of all, even though I was putting the small one to sleep, I still was having his lullaby was the amazing stories of all your heroes. It's truly so inspirational and well thought. All of us, the Goldenbergs, Rappaport, Schneiders, everybody, just simply beautiful. For my hero, I'm actually going to choose two people. I hope that's okay, because you're not supposed to choose more than one. But the reason why I'm choosing these two people is because these two people are my incredible role models. My two Rebbeim, Rav Zamlechem Goldberg, who unfortunately passed away about 3 months ago, and Rav Chaim Drukman, who Baruch Hashem, lavdil metim l'chaim. The reason I chose these two people, and I think one of the facts of the role models, is they both taught me that everybody can be a hero. What is it to be a hero? To be a hero is to find your own inner strength, your own inner talent, your own unique thing that you're willing to give your life for, as Mark mentioned beautifully, Nachshon Be'min Hadav, and find your skill. We each all have inside of us something unique, something beautiful. And if we can focus and develop that and use that, we are all true heroes. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us that thing. And the reason I mentioned these two Rebbeim is they're both very, very different people. Zalman Nechemia is what was a tremendous genius, but a very quiet, humble, completely disconnected from any type of political meaning whatsoever. He could give 15 or 19 classes a day. He's given over maybe 20,000 classes in his life, but completely disconnected from any political forum, and just a real teacher and a discerner of Torah. Rav Drukman is exactly the opposite. Rav Drukman is not your classic Rosh Yeshiva who gives incredible in-depth conceptual Torah classes. He's a very active politician. He's very involved in initiatives and in settlement of building and in child education and so on and so forth. And the connection between the two of them is so special because they each found their own gift. And I think they were so successful because they really developed and were able to see their talent, where their advantages and disadvantages, their pros and cons, and they developed it. And that's a message for us, that we can all be our own hero. We have to find that note, that ring inside of us, that uniqueness, bring it out, and then we can all be our own heroes. I think that was the message I wanted to say.
Oh man, wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so are we going to be Nana? Will be benefit from somebody lighting the Chanukah? We can't have any Israeli sufganiyot, but at least we can watch somebody light the candles.
Rabbi Sebs, I can show you my nirot. It's a little bit of a kapara.
Okay.
Difference. So we have here. This is Ma'aleh Adumim. You can see we have three. One already ran out, I think. Okay. But that's something. So you have. But not much. But of course, the discussion of the miracle here was also very special.
That's for sure.
I can light the candles.
Oh, please do.
Go ahead, Surya. Lovely.
Unless someone else wants to.
No, Surya, please go ahead.
Okay. I just will turn off my video during when I'm moving in my house. 1 minute. I want to use this opportunity to say that for me, it was so amazing, not just to learn about the community in St. Louis. I learned so much about my community, and it was really, really special for me. ברוך אתה אדוני, אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר קידשנו מצוותיו וציוונו להדליק נר של חנוכה. ברוך אתה אדוני, אלוהינו מלך העולם, שעשה ניסים לאבותינו, באים מהם בזמן הזה.
אמן.
Cool.
הנרות הללו אנו מדליקים, הנרות הללו אנו מדליקים על הניסים ועל הנפלאות ועל התשועות ועל המלחמות שעשתי אבותינו. שציוונו כל לך הקדושים בכל 8 ימי חנוכה, הנרות הללו קודשים, ואין לנו רשות להשתמש בהם, אלא לראות אותם בלבד, כדי להודות ולהלל בשמך הגדול, על ניסיך ועל נפלאותיך ועל ישועתך. מעוז צור ישועתי, לך נאה לשבח, תיקון בית תפילתי, ושם תודה זבח, לתכין מטבח, מצרם נבח, אז אגמור בשיר מזמור, חנוכת המזבח, אז אגמור בשיר מזמור, חנוכת המזבח.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, Suriel. Thank you. That's marvelous, marvelous, marvelous.
Rabbi Snason, I forgot to mention something very quick. I hope it's not too late. Do I have a second?
Sure, absolutely.
I didn't have a chance. I thought about this the whole time. Musar Avicha would like to wish you, if I'm not mistaken, I read you just had your 115th anniversary. Is that correct?
115th,
115th, 115.
Yeah, but I was not the rabbi at the time.
So we're only 32 years old. I hope we last 115. Bezrat Hashem anymore. I don't think I'll be the rabbi in 115 years. But
sometimes feels like 115.
So I wanted to wish Kilat and Nusach Hari Ben Zayin a very lovely 150th anniversary and 150th more in Bezrat Hashem next to our shul in Malay Adumim someday, Bezrat Hashem.
Amen. We should all get together soon in person, very soon, very soon. I'd like to thank, I know on behalf of everyone, I'd like to thank Suriel for arranging things on the side of Musar Avicha. I'd like to thank Debbie Goldberg for arranging things on our end and all of you. And I was just really so inspired by the very thoughtful, inspirational stories.
I thought it was a great discussion. I really did.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm thinking about all these heroes, the religious, the teachers, of course, a lot of stuff about the Holocaust, the family members, the medics. It was just really, it was inspiring. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Chanukah Sameach to everyone, and we should see each other again soon on our next occasion to get together. Thank you, everyone, very much.
Amen.
Chanukah
Sameach, everyone. Chanukah
Sameach. Okay, shalom. I guess we can.
We're leaving? We're leaving. That's it. We're done, no? Yes.